Hello everyone, welcome back to Politically Challenged, the show that brings you analysis and commentary on today's top stories across the political spectrum. I'm Mason Devers, along with Micca Terrell, Amber Kent, Rebecca Nanney, and Christenson, and this is Politically Challenged. Tonight we'll begin with a story that has been dominating the news cycle for the past 2 weeks. It affects Hollywood actors, Olympic athletes, and most any woman you know. Rebecca, you've been following this story, so what can you tell us about it?
Well, the phrase has been posted millions of times on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Me Too has engulfed the social media world with stories and heartbreaking encounters of sexual harassment and sexual assault. Using the simple hashtag also gives people an opportunity to share their experiences without having to disclose all of the details of their experience. This action alone has the capability to empower victims. The social media campaign began after Alyssa Milano tweeted about the Me Too hashtag Me Too in response to the growing number of women coming forward about the Harvey Weinstein scandal. Not only are women and victims of sexual assault/harassment showing solidarity with the hashtag, but celebrities connected with Weinstein are also showing their support for the women. Kevin Smith, famous producer and director of the Jay and Silent Bob films, has announced that he will be donating all of the residual proceeds from his films connected with Miramax and Weinstein Co. to the nonprofit organization Women in Film. If you're unfamiliar with the Weinstein scandal, in a nutshell, Harvey Weinstein is a well-known producer that has over 50 women alleging sexual misconduct, harassment, assault, or rape. Weinstein used his position to mistreat women trying to succeed in the entertainment business. However, because of the situation, the hashtag MeToo has become viral across many social media platforms. It has even become a show of empowerment on Austin Peay's campus. So, my question to you guys are, what are your personal opinions about hashtag MeToo? And also some of the other hashtags that have come out of it. Supporters are leaving hashtags like I believe you. Some of the males surrounding this issue are even using hashtags like it was me.
Yeah, I would definitely start by saying there's no doubt that I think we can all find a little bit of a surprise in how many people were involved in this movement. Continuing still day after day, although not quite as big as it was when it first happened. It's actually scary how many times we've seen the hashtag MeToo, and I know that was its purpose to begin with, but just as you said, you're not only seeing it with women, you're also seeing it with men, and it's at all ages, and that's the part that probably can make us the most sad and somewhat cringeworthy in the fact that these things happen a lot of times they go unnoticed or they get pushed right under the table.
My only problem with some of the hashtags like it was me is I feel that some of the perpetrators are taking away the empowerment that women are feeling by hashtagging it was me and kind of making this movement about their guilt and them trying to seek forgiveness. No offense, you can't be forgiven for any sexual assault or harassment.
Yeah, and to some, to those who have experienced, I can understand where that would come from. And then you have some who will also bring the offender to tears by actually forgiving them, which has happened in some cases. So I know that may sound crazy, and it may just be something that depending on where you stand, and some people it's a spiritual thing. But it's sad to see the way that it has happened, and I have not seen the opposing hashtags though. I will
I read a couple of them online. There were some posted. I didn't bring any of them here because I didn't feel they were necessary.
I understand.
Yeah. What do you guys think about the hashtags? Do you have anything to say? Do you think they served their purpose? They succeeded in bringing awareness?
I definitely do, and I think going off kind of what I said in the intro to the show at the very end about, this affects pretty much any woman you know, it really shocked me how many women I knew. Obviously, I know them and know them on a personal level, but might not be so close with them that they would tell me that they might have been sexually harassed or sexually assaulted. And so seeing some of the women that I know and have in my life post the hashtag MeToo, it was kind of like surreal, in seeing that, it really is a lot closer to home sometimes than you think it is.
Yeah. Here on Austin Peay's campus, we actually had a student come out, and she was just in shorts and like a crop top or bathing suit top with a board with her story on it, and she had students come up and write on her body hashtags Me Too and hashtags I Believe. Do you think universities should support protest movements like that and bringing more awareness to the rape culture that is on college campuses? I mean, it comes up with the whole thing like Brock Turner that happened many years ago. Well,
no, that was just last year.
Was it just last year? I
Yeah,
thought it
that
was
was
2015.
No, that was just last
my
year.
bad. But I mean, it happens everywhere, and there are more stories and more people like Brock Turner that are minimal time in jail while their victims are sometimes forced out of that university because of the stigma that it was their fault, or, you know, she ruined this college swimmer's career. So what do you think about that? Universities being more...
I worry that Me Too it's an eye-opener, but I don't think it's going to change anything. I really don't.
I couldn't agree with you more.
I'm sad
I couldn't agree with you more.
Because
Yeah.
I feel like the patriarchal rape culture that we have been under, I say this as a woman, for hundreds, thousands of years, it is so deeply entrenched and ingrained in us. I don't know what's going to change that.
Yeah, I think it starts at a young age, and I think it's how certain people are raised. I don't think this is something that is changed for the mind of a 30-year-old or the mind of a 65-year-old, as sickening as that might sound. I just, to me, this has a lot to do with how someone is raised, where the core beliefs begin, and how that culture is taken into the minds of young ones and how serious it can be. And then for the victims at such a young age, not knowing what the moral compass is when you're being that confused so early. So I do think the hashtag is great to quote unquote bring awareness, but bringing awareness only does so much when you have people that are continuing to make these acts.
I think my biggest problem with this entire situation was the hashtag Me Too movement comes too late. It comes during a point where it's already happened. And we're raising awareness that this is something that affects probably every woman that you will see on the street almost. And the fact that we're just now doing something after the fact that they're harassed or assaulted, it comes too late. Like, it might bring awareness to a woman to maybe be wary of being in a situation around her, but in the end, it's not her fault. Or any kind of male that goes through the same kind of assault or abuse, it's not their fault. The people who are the abusers aren't going to change just because they see someone saying hashtag Me Too. And it goes back to this whole situation of, like you said, patriarchal reign that we have over our mindset. And what really bothered me about this whole story to begin with was Weinstein is leaving the country now to go seek help for sexual addiction. This is not addiction to sex at all. This is addiction to power and misusing your power.
I completely agree.
He's not, I can't say that he's not addicted to sex because I'm not a health professional that can say that, but in my formal opinion, he is not addicted to sex. He is addicted to having the power to put over top of somebody and being able to use that power for his own gain.
Well, and that's where the
completely agree.
disciplinary action has got to come into effect. You talk about the issue that happened last year, and even issues that happen almost regularly. You look at our jails and the number of people that we have incarcerated and how well they're treated in jail. I'm sorry, but a lot of people would choose that over their daily life. We're talking 3 hot meals a day, and I get that it's still jail, and we've always said that with a negative connotation, but at the end of the day, it's a pretty good quality of life paid by the taxpayers. It's a lot of people that live in those cells that have done these things, and really that's their worst punishment.
Yeah, well, the justice system isn't really set up to protect the victim.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. And basically bare their souls and have to face their the person that violated them in court.
Yeah.
I mean, it's horrible.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, something needs to be done at the justice level.
What is there to fear in your actions when there are no repercussions?
Right.
That's where I'm confused. People want to say that the repercussions of jail time, 25 to life, whatever, okay? Call it what you want it, but if you're able to get an education, sleep like a baby, work out, are you kidding me? Then that jail doesn't seem too bad after all.
Well, the thing is,
I don't get that.
About Me Too, the people that are harming these victims that they do actually step out against aren't being punished. Brock Turner spent less than 3 months in jail.
Well, so it's technical punishment. It's just not what it should be.
No,
it's just not what it should be.
They're not getting
That's not-
punished.
that wasn't a punishment.
At any level.
That's
At any
what the
level.
government considers
They
to be a
didn't
punishment.
want jail to interfere with his education.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure being raped behind a dumpster interferes with hers.
And
I believe she ended up leaving that school
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
going to another school
Yeah.
because of that situation. And so I think Me Too just really brings to light how massive the problem actually is. Because a lot of people want to sweep it under the rug and forget about it. Because the statistic, 1 in 3 women are sexually assaulted or raped every year, is a real statistic. But you don't think about that.
And
Well,
that's
real.
what,
think about how that is written. 1 in 3 women is sexually assaulted. We don't say 1 in 3 women is sexually assaulted by an attacker, by a man, by someone. We
By
don't
a
s-
stranger.
By a stranger, or by someone they know. We
Majority
don't.
of the
We
time it
don't
is somebody
know.
that-
And I just want to point out there are 3
Yeah.
women sitting at this table right now, and by that statistic, one of us has been sexually assaulted. So
And you know, those kind of statistics, like Micah was saying earlier, you can continue to talk about them all day long, and we can bring it out into the light. But at the end of the day, it starts from the very bottom, and it starts with how people are raised.
It starts with education.
And and even you could take it into a moral thing. As much as people want to disagree on morals and what is a moral to
Right.
begin with. There are certain ways to go about it, and it's just tragic to see how it all unfolds in the long run.
well, and I was just going to point out 2 things. I get the privilege of serving on the Sexual Assault Response Committee here at the university. And like we've already discussed here with the Brock Turner case, I think sexual assault is a huge issue not only in our nation, but more specifically on college campuses right now. And I know that we've talked about, the sentences not being as harsh for the offenders. And so that's one thing that the government has been working on, improving the Title IX legislation that binds the universities throughout our nation to, have more of a formal process on how to deal with the situations when there are rape allegations or sexual assault allegations. And I'm very proud of our university in that, we have a full calendar of events every month having to do with either educational or, we have a huge thing called Walk a Mile in Her Shoes or Their Shoes at Fort Terrace Stadium here to raise awareness about sexual assault.
Well, we also have the FMLA raising awareness through the Clothesline Project and the
Right.
Vagina Monologues and various other activities on campus. So I just had one last question about Me Too. The response or lack of response from Donald Trump about this campaign. Do you think he didn't respond or didn't respond in a way that it was nationally recognized because of his history with sexually harassing women?
I do not. I don't. I actually do not believe that because I do think there's a lot that goes into that, and there's a lot of his history that has been talked about, and there's even clips that we've heard that we may disagree with. And just to touch on that, there's been a lot worse said by people that you see in your everyday lives. And if people want to say that that's not locker room talk, then they never played a sport.
But
because
as-
I get what you're saying. I get what you mean.
As the
he should
figurehead
have.
of our country,
As the figurehead.
president of the United States.
address what is happening to the women in his country?
I still think that it's something he could have brought up, but at the same time, we're asking him to literally bring up every single thing that happens to hit the news. And as the president, we're going to get something shortly about the pronunciation of a man's name. And there's just things that he is constantly on board about. And maybe he should have even tweeted about it.
Exactly.
Maybe he
He's
should
all
have even
about
tweeted
tweeting.
about it.
He should have tweeted. He should have said there were many hashtags he could have chosen to use.
Yeah. And I mean, there's.
Well, and if he didn't want to, this would have been a perfect opportunity for Melania to say, "Okay, I'm
Yeah.
a woman. I hear you," and
Yeah.
that could have been a whole big thing.
She
for
should
her
really
to
the
do.
step
first
up.
lady of the
Yeah.
United
I mean,
States
that
She
as
should
well.
step up.
Most
You know,
definitely.
And
if
this
not
was a
her,
point she could have.
Ivanka. I mean, there's Trump family members who could have stepped up. It would have
In
been
his
very
place.
appropriate
Yeah.
if he didn't feel like he could comment.
That's
Yeah.
understandable.
And I mean, I'm not going to disagree that he shouldn't have come out and said something, but at the same time, if you want a little bit of history about Weinstein, he's been a huge donor to Democratic candidates, especially the Clintons, the Obamas, and it took Hillary Clinton a week to come out and say anything about this.
Hillary
and
Clinton
pretty
also
sure
isn't
the
the president
Obamas
of the
haven't
country.
said anything either.
But the figurehead that she
Obama
plays
was
is-
president, and she was Secretary of State, though.
And she
Yeah.
never,
So
they
I
never
think
said a word.
that's still an important role.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of that can be swept under the rug by not just the current president, but many people
Well, I'm
that stand
surprised
in their
Obama
race.
didn't say anything because he proclaimed himself a feminist. You know,
Yeah.
it was
Sure.
all about, hey,
And
I'm
I
all
mean-
about
Yeah.
women's issues, but then
Well-
really didn't hear anything from him.
Yeah,
So I was
Michelle
surprised.
Obama the same. She
Yeah,
was
Michelle.
very out there about
Yeah.
women's
Yeah.
issues. I was just very shocked by the lack of political input
Yeah.
for such a
Yeah.
campaign that has taken over all of social media. But unfortunately, that brings us to an end with this segment. Coming up, we're going to talk about Trump's phone call to a fallen soldier's widow. Why couldn't the president remember his name? Michael will break it down next.